Battlefield 2042. No, not Battlefield Bad Company. Just kind of showing you about this, showing these few bits and pieces of these classic games. The class system. Battlefield 2042 was missing this at launch. Did not have the class system like Battlefield 3, as you see Battlefield Bad Company, Bad Company 2, even Battlefield 4 didn't have the assault to support the recon or even the engineer. Now, with a recent update, DICE has decided let's put the class system back in, which I got to give them some credit. Listening to the Battlefield community, because when Battlefield 2042 started, it pretty had a really rough start, pretty rocky. I'm a Battlefield veteran. My first introduction to Battlefield series was in Battlefield 3. Put many hours on it on the PS3. Did the Battlefield 4, played that. Tons of hours as well. Battlefield 5, Battlefield 1. Never played Battlefield 2142 or 2142 or 1942 or even Battlefield 2. Those weren't on the consoles at the time. I never got introduced to those. But now with these updates with Battlefield 2042, is it worth getting into? I'm going to talk about that in this video. Some of the changes I've experienced, since I played this at launch, and I definitely agree with a lot of the grievances a lot of players, Battlefield veterans like myself, and some new players was expecting. This is not the Battlefield. We were anticipating when 2042 came out. Did have a lot of issues with the maps. There was not very much cover. Some were too big. They had 128 players. The 64 player, they've kind of reduced it since the updates. They had season 1. I played it several hours in season 1 and season 2. Never finished season 2. Like I said, I took a break on it. Like I said, until they got a lot of this stuff, updated. And some of the maps, like this is, like Breakaway, had some issues. They've actually reworked this map, which I believe is better. They moved things around, add some extra cover, so they definitely improved this map. Listening to some of the developers on the Battlefield Inside Battlefield, their podcast, listen to some developers, some of their reasons behind, I guess, some of the maps, why they made those. They were thinking, hey, these maps are huge. Some people are like, my gracious, these are huge. There's no cover. We're going to get cover, or go wherever we're going to go to get to one objective to the next point. And another big thing was some of the developers say, hey, they expect a lot of players are going to call in drops vehicles or get vehicles. Not all the players do that. And some of the data they showed, players, not everybody does that. Can get a vehicle, or they're just going to walk it to the next point. So, but yeah, there is definitely some more updates. They're also going to be updating, I think, Hourglass with the big dunes and sand. That's a huge definitely needs some TLC on that map for sure. I'm trying to think of the other maps. There's one more map there. I think it's Discarded. I think they're they're redoing Discarded as well. That has a big ship out in the desert, what have you, and I think there's containers. Let's talk about containers. It's a big meme about that. I'm sure if you're following social media with the Battlefield, it's like, let's put cover, let's put sandbags, let's put containers here and there. And I think even DICE did. I think last season they did a little joke got the little inside joke. I guess they had I think a charm, a little container. Is it worth playing right now? From what I've been playing, it's been pretty fun. Granted, that with the specialists are still there. Like I said, that was a huge, big issue. Getting back to the class system and and the introduction of the specialist with 2042. There was never a specialist. People are saying, is this COD? Was this Fortnite? Apex? What's the deal? If I wanted to play COD or Call of Duty, I didn't want these cosmetics. I want these specialists. And I kind of see some of the arguments about that. Why do they introduce these? Why do they take the class system away? You're big. This is a Battlefield is really known for a team-based squad. You play the objective. You have a recon. You have another support guy. Everybody's working together. And now you got these specialists in the mix. Granted, they kept them in, which this was a huge undertaking for developing DICE and restructuring and getting the class system in place. Which I kind of it's like, hey, great job in that aspect. At least getting that in. Honestly, with the specialists in there, it's fine. I've unlocking different skins, it's kind of fun. Okay, but at least they got the class system. At least they got this. There's certain gadgets. Not all the gadgets are widely available for all the specialists, which is fine, which is great. To kind of they're refining it a little bit. So now getting back into playing the Battlefield 2042, I'm having fun, enjoying it. Yes, I do see the improvements. there is, yes, there is a little bit, there's some extra, there's always some other tweaks and updates they can use and stuff, but at least they're listening to the community and showing that effort. The DICE studio today is not the DICE studio from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 2. It's definitely a different group of developers. What they did on those maps in Battlefield 3, that's the nostalgia. That's what we're, as veteran Battlefield players really loved about those maps. Just all those different aspects. Objective. Team-based. Squad talking and all that stuff. There was a lot of things missing. Even the talking to your teammates at the beginning. That's the whole point. To try to not being built into the to the game. Chat. Your certain voice. Chat. So. Yeah, with all that being said, with the updates and everything else, I definitely do see improvements. And I'm looking forward to, when Season 4 drops, as I'm making this video, it's dropping into this month. Additional reworks and maps, a new map they're added. There was not many weapons in this game compared to the other Battlefields, and I definitely agree with the arguments. A lot of people, why are all these missing? They had got them Portal, which kind of showing the old maps kind of remastered, some of the old vaulted and locked weapons that are now giving those accessible to players now, which is great. They're actually adding some more guns, definitely improving in that aspect. I mean, it's not as 100% better. A lot of people still would be more satisfied with having more weapons, but at least we're getting a lot more weapons compared to the launch when this game first launched out. There was hardly that many. Most people may say, "Oh, that's what the weapons." Yeah, if you're playing Battlefield and you see the amount of weapons in Battlefield, those other iterations of Battlefield 3, 4, the amount of weapons you had at your disposal. Yeah, definitely. There was definitely a big gap between this 2042 Battlefield 2042 and the old games. So an improvement in that aspect, which is great. Another thing too, they're not gonna add it now. It's too late now, but they didn't add a single player campaign in Battlefield 2042, which was really like what, Battlefield's always had a campaign single player, but most people will say, well, I never played it. Even the developers say, most of the statistics showing people are playing multiplayer. They don't play the single player. There are still players. I mean, always play the campaigns, and I'll do the multiplayer. I enjoy both single player and I usually like to get the story behind it. Some of these characters, so unfortunately the specialists, most of the stuff you gotta look online or look offline to see what their lore is, what each specialist is, and most people don't want to have time to do that and stuff. So yeah, so I don't know, either or. Like I said, the next iteration of Battlefield, I've heard they're actually going to put a campaign, so hopefully what they're learning from this experience, hopefully they'll come out. The next Battlefield will be definitely what a lot of Battlefield veterans are expecting in the Battlefield, especially another thing that's lacking. You can see it. There are some aspects in here. There's destruction, but the Levolution was pretty revolutionary. When they first came out with destruction, in the Battlefield, 3, 4 different buildings being destructed, that pretty much changed the dynamics completely on the Battlefield during the gameplay. And the lack of that in this Battlefield 2042 is definitely unfortunate. I mean, there are some buildings and some maps I've seen where there are destructible buildings. I've played and just recently just shown some of that, but not to the extent from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. I mean, having destruction into the game, that was a really unique thing on Battlefield. And when they first launched this game, there's really not much destruction. Especially like if you're playing Hourglass. There's not really much destruction in the big buildings. The old. Back then was pretty awesome to have that extra dynamic, that extra change, that would change the whole play, the Battlefield. 1 minute you're in a building taking cover as a sniper or what have you, and it's gone, pieces are around you and you're having to move. That aspect, I'm really hoping in the next Battlefield iteration they actually include that, do more destruction in the next Battlefield that they come out. So with that said, going forward, playing this game right now with the updates, it's definitely fun. So, for people who've actually haven't played it for a while, uninstalled it, totally understand. There's some players hardcore. I mean, me, I just give, it's a Battlefield. I enjoy it. Now, like I said, take a break, get back into it. There's so many other games. I would definitely, give it a try. Like I said, it's definitely had, its, like I said, rough points around the edges. And I know there's, like I said, there's still some hardcore people who think of this as a trash game. This is terrible, blah, blah. It's like, okay, that's a little bit too far. That's my opinion. That's a little bit. It's not trash. I mean, there's people, developers putting some, pretty good energy on this, this game. It's playable. It's not like, getting a little bit out, a little bit. I don't know. Just I think that's just, for me, my opinion. That's just, you can have your opinion, but just saying it's trash and it's crap is garbage, blah blah blah. It's like, really? Okay, that's your opinion. That's a little bit extreme, I think, in my opinion. But like I said, game's enjoyable, it's playable, and like I said, would you say that? I'm not going to defend the developers, but DICE, they're putting a passion into the game. They're trying to at least giving it the opportunity to improve the game, which I give that to them. That studio. I mean, regardless of what you say about EA, the publisher, at least the developers are listening. Like I said, mentioned earlier, they have a podcast. They're Q&A. They're talking about have questions from the community, and they're always observing and on social media. And every time I get on there, they rip the heck out of this. There's so many negative comments. It's like, wow. So, but besides all that, definitely give it a try. I think it's worth playing again with the updates. It's definitely enjoyable. So, with that said, thank you for listening. Hope this was helpful. Until the next one, take care.